Hi, Susan. So I got your email and I thought instead of typing up an email for you, because I have so many things that I want to share that I think could be helpful for you, I decided to make a little screencast video for you. So I hope that's okay. I had to cancel the seminar because one, I'm newly pregnant, and so I just didn't need one more extra thing on my plate. But a lot of districts now, after I had my last year, a lot of districts are having me come and speak to their whole staff. And so there weren't as many people interested in just sending individual teachers this year. So I'm hoping that that will change in the future. Last year it was really, really popular because it was the first time, so people were kind of seeing, what was going on. But now people are wanting me to come to their district to speak to their whole staff. So that's why we kind of had to cancel this time. But I'm hoping in the future that we'll be able to do it again. I am speaking at MREA this year and have an application in at MEA. And so hopefully that will kind of start to build some interest so that we can bring the summer seminar back for districts to just send individual teachers or individual people who want to go. So that being said, that's kind of why we had to put the kibosh on it this year, which again, I am bummed, but at least we can kind of do a little bit of like a virtual, like one-on-one here. So I read through your email and I'm just going to hide this thing here. And I'm going to bring up actually my PowerPoint that I would have used at the seminar. And just reading through your email about just kind of your choir teacher, choir and band, I think, music teacher. So your scenario looks a little bit differently from classroom teachers who just maybe have like 20 to 25 or 26 students, in a room at a time. So I still think the strategies that I have for you are going to be helpful, but I understand that some of these things might look a little differently because you are in the music world versus the classroom world. So when I do this seminar, I actually teach on 4 different things that I think truly are like the pillars of classroom management, which you can kind of see on the screen there: relationships, building classroom flow in your classroom, and then technology and communication with parents. The 2 that I think are going to help you the most are the first 2, which is relationship building and building classroom flow. Just with the amount of students that are probably in your room at a time, building a strong foundation on these 2 things are going to be probably the biggest things that are going to help you. So the first thing is, we always hear about principals and administration and PD people talking about like, oh, you have to build relationships, but they never teach you how to actually do it and do it well and do it to fidelity. Although I hate that term because you hear that so often when they teach you new curriculum, like, make sure you teach it to fidelity. But it's true. If you don't know how to actually like build true relationships, then saying building relationships means nothing to people. So what does that actually look like? And it's more simple than we think. The biggest thing I have found going into now my 11th year is that building relationships doesn't have to be super fluffy. It doesn't have to be this big, huge song and dance where you do all of these team building activities, although I do encourage that. The biggest thing, and I think I even have it on a slide here. Where am I? I have so many things on here. Here, just this one. The biggest thing that will help building relationships and will mitigate behaviors in the first place is if you have empathy and accountability at the same time in your room. And I think sometimes that's hard for people because they think they have to be like a really tough teacher, like hard on kids, and then they can't have room for, being sympathetic or empathetic. Or they're afraid that if they're too empathetic, then kids will walk all over them. And I'm here to tell you that you have to have both at the same time, or else your classroom management, nothing else will work. So how I do this, how I make sure that I have accountability and empathy at the same time, is I set very firm rules and boundaries and expectations day 1. Week 1 of school, I don't do any curriculum, none. All I do is I pound routines and procedures. I pound expectations. We do a ton of team building. I do different activities that kind of helps me figure out their academia a little bit, but they don't really know that that's what I'm doing. But as soon as you have empathy and accountability together, that is going to set a tone where kids know you mean business, but they also know that you're someone safe that they can choose to come and talk to, or that your room is a safe place to be. So what that might look like is like, let's say, like, so I teach 6th grade math. And so let's say that I have some kids who are popping off during class and are just being idiots, and they're interrupting and they're making weird noises, and they're just, whatever. At first, what I might do is I might just stop my lesson. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to look at them. And then I'm going to go back to what I'm doing. That alone right there shows that you're not going to make a big deal about what they're doing, because a lot of times kids just want attention and they want to try to get a rise out of the teacher. So that sets the tone of like, I'm holding you accountable for your action right now, but I'm also not going to yell at you or call you out in front of everybody or try to get you more riled up or get the class more riled up, okay? This also then, when you stop talking, kids look to see where you are. Like ones who maybe haven't been listening, they're like, the teacher stopped talking. Where did she go? Because half the time we sound like the Charlie Brown teacher to a lot of kids, a want, because we're constantly talking. So when you stop, that gets their attention more than you trying to shout or yell over kids. And so oftentimes when I stop a lesson, because there's kids being no loads, there'll be other kids in the room who are like, Johnny, shut up. She's trying to teach and you're being annoying. Half the time the kids take care of it for me. So that's my very first approach, is I do not get worked up about stuff. I do not call attention to it. This is where the empathy and accountability are going to coexist together. So I pause. I don't say anything. I just stand and I stare. My kids tell me that I have a very good stare. I'm only 4'11", so like I have to be somewhat scary. So then usually they'll stop, for a little bit. I'll go about my business. Let's say they start again. Again, I'm going to do this only twice. I'm going to do it twice, and then after I do it twice, if it still keeps happening, then I change my approach. I do it one more time. I stop. I stare at them. Usually the other kids around them will tell them to shut up or like pay attention or you're being annoying, whatever, okay? I will do that twice. That's it. No more. Let's say a third time happens, okay? I simply stop my lesson. I don't say anything to them out loud. I walk up to their desk. I tap their desk to say, like, you. And I just go like this. And I simply am silent the entire time. You don't call attention to the behavior. You don't get them riled up. You don't get yourself riled up. You simply silently walk over to them, tap their desk, tell them to come here. You go out the door. You go outside the door. You close the door so that the students inside can't hear. This is the part also where empathy comes in, because a lot of times the kids who are probably being turds are used to teachers calling them out, used to teachers embarrassing them in front of the class. Now, while I don't think this behavior is okay, any type of behavior from a student is communication from that student. And so you don't know necessarily what's going on in that student's life. You don't know what happened to them that morning. And so as angry as I can sometimes get at their poor behavior, I have to make sure that I don't have tunnel vision. I have to look at the whole picture. This child has so much more going on outside of just like what's right, like what's in my classroom. So tap their desk, tell them to come here, walk outside the door, close the door. This is not about the other students in the room. They don't need to hear this. This other student also doesn't deserve to have any extra attention. So I close the door. And then I start to ask them questions. Instead of lecturing them, like, I need you to be quiet, or I need you to be just right, I will simply say, why did I bring you out here? And if the student is shorter than I am, I will choose to sit and have them sit with me so that they are eye level. Oftentimes when you are above them physically, that can cause room for angst, that can cause room for anxiety, that can make them feel like you are acting like you're inferior, and so that they are, like they are inferior, like they are tiny to you, like they don't matter. So if a student is taller than I am, which most of mine are, then I have no problem just standing and talking to them as long as I'm lower than they are. I never want to be higher than them. I want to be eye level or lower. So then I ask them questions. And I say, why did I bring you out here? And at this point, they're like, oh, because I was talking. And then I will say something like, why is that not okay in my classroom right now? Well, because we're trying to do a lesson. And then this is where I hold them accountable. And I say, I will not allow you to disrupt the learning of 27 other students in my room. You can choose to change your behavior and come back into my room, or you can choose to sit out here and you can get the work on your own time. I want you to be in my room. What I will not allow is for you to stop the learning of the other students who do want to learn in my room. That whole entire exchange, that whole entire conversation, how you speak, you're not yelling, but you're very firm in your expectations. Right then and there, you are having accountability and empathy all at the same time. Sometimes I'll even say, like, let's say that I know a kid is popping off, and I know like what their home life is like. Like, I had a kid last year whose dad went to jail. So a way that I might be empathetic towards them is I might say, I understand you have a lot going on at home right now, and I can't even imagine what that must be like, and I'm so sorry that that's happening to you. I hope that I can help in any way that I can. Please let me know if there's a way that I can help. However, right now, I cannot allow you to stop the learning of 27 other students who are in my room. So if you need a moment to collect yourself out here, please take all the time you need, and then you can come back in. What I will not allow is for you to stop the learning of the other students who are in my room. So right then and there, the tone of voice that you have, the words that you're saying, the way you're saying it, is holding them accountable for their actions, telling them you will not allow those actions to happen, but also leaving room for empathy of like, yo, dude, I know you've got stuff going on at home. And so like, I'm not gonna like pretend that that's not a factor in your behavior as well. So I have found over the years, like I'm a very, I am a very reactive person, but I have learned over my teaching years to like pick my battles. And I have learned that when my reactivity is much, much lower and I don't get snippy with students or I don't call them out, their behavior is much more the type of behavior that I desire to have in my room. Sometimes I will get like a little bit like snippy with a student and I'll like go back and forth with them, and then I'll think the rest of the day I'm like, oh, that was not, I'm the adult here, like that wasn't smart. And so sometimes as the adult, when we have kids who are popping off, we have to remind ourselves that we're the adult in the room. And as somebody who is a very reactive person, I feel like I can talk about this because if I'm able to keep myself in check, then I can teach other teachers to do it because I can be a very snippy, reactive person. I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 30. And so like actually medically diagnosed, not like a, stupid like TikTok diagnosis. So I understand where some of my ping brain and all this stuff kind of comes from. So if I can regulate myself as a teacher who has ADHD, then I know that I can teach other people to do it. It just takes practice. And even if you want to like write things down that you want to say to kids when you bring them out into the hallway, do that. But I have found that when you have empathy and accountability in the way you speak and in the way you hold yourself, almost 80% of your behavior issues are going to go out the door. You're not going to have any because kids know you're not going to let them get away with stuff, but that you also have a heart. Like you're also empathetic to what they have going on. Now, if you have a kid who's just notoriously, I don't want to say a bad kid, but has really bad behavior and is a bad kid, this kind of approach might not necessarily work on them, or you might have to do this again and again and again for it to finally click, for them to finally get it. But that's one of the biggest things in this first chapter when I do this seminar is like how to build relationships. The empathy and accountability piece is so simple. It's like a simple concept. But that's one of the biggest foundations of building a relationship that's actually going to stick with students, not some like surface level stuff. When kids know that you're going to hold them accountable, when they know you have rules in your room, when they know they can't like walk all over you, when you have those firm boundaries, you're truly building trust with them. They trust you as an adult who's going to keep them safe, who's going to keep the room under control, who's going to keep the kids who are maybe bad kids. You're going to keep them under control. That provides trust in the other students. That provides a feeling of safety. And I have found with students, trust is one of their biggest currencies. If they can't trust you as a teacher, as a person, they're not going to do jack for you. But if they can trust you, if they know you're going to follow through, consistency, it has to be consistent every single time. The second you're not consistent with the behavior, boom, all your hard work goes out the door. I don't care if you even have to discipline a quote unquote good kid. Maybe a good kid is kind of popping off. You do the same thing to them. You stop mid-lesson, you look at them, you stare them down. You don't get wound up. You bring them outside if you need to. So you have to stay consistent. That's the biggest thing too. But when all those things come together, accountability, trust, consistency, you're building a classroom culture that kids want to come to. You're building a classroom culture that's in control. You're building a classroom culture where kids trust you, and trust is their biggest currency, especially middle schoolers. Like you talked about teaching 6th grade and then they're going to be in 7th grade next year. Okay. Now, the caveat to all of this is if you had them last year, and you know how they are, they also might know or assume they know how you are. And so they might immediately on day one go back to their old ways. Like you might not get a honeymoon phase with these kids. And so you might have to do these routines and procedures and hold your boundaries a little bit harder for a little bit longer until they finally understand, oh, she means business now. We can't really mess around anymore. That's the only thing that might be a little bit tricky for you, just because if you're looping with the same kids and you had them last year, you might not get a honeymoon phase at all. They might just go right for it, like immediately. I gotta find, where's my little pause button? I just had someone come into my yard. Oh, never mind. It's just the gas company. They're fine. Okay, so I have a whole list of things that I wrote down when I read your email of things that I think will help you. So I'm just going through kind of all the things that I wanted to talk to you about. So accountability, relationships, setting your tone from day one. Like day one, you want to nip those issues in the bud right away. And like I said, you're going to have potentially a little bit of a different situation because you might not get a honeymoon phase because these kids already had you. One thing, talking about us as adults, how we kind of want to make sure we're regulated and make sure that we don't get into like my mama always says like a pissing match with a skunk. Like if we don't want to go back and forth with a student. One thing I also teach on is how to stay regulated as an adult. Like, is it really about us? So skipping the power struggle, right? Because especially middle schoolers, right? They know how to push buttons. And so if we can stay neutral, if we can stay calm and collected, a lot of times kids are trying to potentially get a rise out of us. And so if we don't give that to them, then what do they have? So something I teach about is skipping the power struggle. So first, let's say you have a kid who's just popping off. And maybe they've been just, doing stuff all day. First of all, do a little self-assessment. Are you regulated enough to deal with this situation? Or are you going to blow your top the second you start getting into it with this student? If you need a second to collect yourself, please do so, because it's going to make your life a lot easier down the road, okay? And at my seminar last year, I had a teacher comment on this page, and she said, I needed this page more than I even knew. She said, because I am so reactive. The second a kid says something, like, I flip. And so she said, this has helped me so much. So first of all, are you regulated enough? I have to check myself a lot because, like, ADHD, I want to go to war, like, the second a kid says something sassy. So are you regulated enough? Second, is their behavior right now, the behavior that you don't like, is it directly about you? Or could it be something entirely different? Like, again, I had a kid last year whose dad went to jail. And so all of a sudden he had some really poor behaviors that came out. And I knew that it wasn't anything personal against me, against my classroom. I knew he was going through some stuff. So ask yourself, is this about me? Because a lot of times when teachers get reactive, they're making it about themselves. And 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with us. We just happen to be in the room when the kid is having a moment, and then we think it's about us, okay? And the third thing, are they actually trying to get a reaction out of the teacher? Are they actually trying to get a reaction out of you? And if they are, remember what we talked about, keeping your voice even, not giving them anything to really try to like go off of, feed off of. Bring them away from their audience. Bring them out into the hallway and shut the door, okay? Are they actually trying to get a reaction out of you? If so, use those strategies to mitigate that and tell them, like show them, you can't get a reaction out of me. Like, I don't know, cool dude, like I don't know what you want from me, but I'm not gonna like flip my lid. Or are they struggling with something completely different? Like the kid that I had whose dad went to jail. Or I know that I had a kid last year whose mom was in and out of jail for drugs. And so he and his older brother were like the parents in the house. And so if he came to school and was like super sleepy, I knew to ask him, hey, did you get a lot of sleep last night, or was mom gone? Did you? And so like, and if he didn't get a lot of sleep, I let him sleep. Kids can't learn if they're tired. They can't learn if they're hungry. They can't learn if they're not safe. So us trying to force them to do things, if they don't have their basic needs met, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And I think, I would consider myself somewhat of an old school teacher. My mom was a high school English teacher. And so like, I believe in like consequences and like I have expectations and all that kind of stuff. But I think we have, as teachers, those of us that maybe are like more old school, we have to recognize that kids' childhoods now are very, 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 very different than necessarily our childhoods, where we probably had two parents at home. We probably had food on the table. We probably didn't deal a lot with, potentially drugs, that kind of thing. So I think that's also something that we really have to take into consideration. There's so much more to these kids' childhoods now. Social media, the internet, phones, don't even get me started. So I think just having, again, some empathy that they truly have some crap that, that they're dealing with, that they're going on. So it's not necessarily about us, as much as we sometimes think, the behavior is about us. It's not. And so I put this page in there because I think a lot of teachers maybe think it is. And I even had, like I said, I had some teachers who were like, dude, this page, I didn't know how much I needed this page. So that's, that's something really big, is just checking yourself. It's probably not about you. Have a one-on-one conversation with the kid, see what's up, instead of just automatically assuming that they're just, being a jerk to be a jerk. Let me see kind of what else I wanted to talk about. Oh, something too, in your room that might be helpful is establishing non-negotiables. So this is something, again, that can set really firm boundaries right away so that kids know they can't walk all over you, they can't negotiate things, whatever. It's kind of for you to establish your beliefs and philosophies as a teacher, and it's a way for the kids to understand your boundaries. Now, non-negotiables don't have to be like a negative thing all the time. Like, I think people think non-negotiables and they think automatically negative. That's not necessarily the case. I try to make sure when I do my non-negotiables that I have one like positive or like one fun thing in there. So like my non-negotiables is like, I don't do learned helplessness. Like, you're gonna sit there with your pencil and just stare at your paper and refuse to ask for help. Great. Sit there, stare at your paper, refuse to ask for help. I am not going to do learned helplessness where I come over to you and I'm like, oh, sweetheart, okay, like, let's see which one you have to. No, you have a mouth. You can talk. You can ask questions. Okay? Learning and safety, again, this is I will not allow you to stop the learning of 27 other students because of your poor choices. So you can sit out here in the pod while you collect yourself, and then please come back when you feel ready. But I will not allow you to stop the learning, okay, of other people. Telling the truth is a big one just in middle school in general. I just teach the kids, listen, you tell the truth, and I'm not going to be mad at you, right? I'm not going to hold it over your head. I'm not going to ream you for poor choices. Will you still have consequences? Yes. Will those consequences potentially be lesser than if you're honest with me? Also, yes. So trust and truth is a big one for me, just because we've dealt with so many kids who just, lie through their teeth. Being responsible. So that's, again, just missing work, making sure your Chromebook is charged, all that kind of stuff. I'm not your mom. I'm not going to do that for you. And one thing that I didn't put on here that is a non-negotiable for me is every Friday, this is like my fun one, every Friday I do something called First Chapter Friday, where I read one chapter of a brand new book to introduce them to new literature, and they get to bring pop, drinks, snacks, all candy, whatever they want, and we always do First Chapter Friday on Friday, no matter what. If it's a short week and we're done on Thursday, we don't do First Chapter Thursday. No, we only do First Chapter Friday. But the kids love it, so that's usually the fun one that I put on there. I just didn't have it on there. But make yourself a list of non-negotiables. Have it posted. Things that you will not allow them to negotiate on. Like maybe it's how they treat instruments, maybe it's how they treat things that are in your room, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another tip that I have. I'm trying to think if there's the last thing. Yeah, I mean, building classroom flow. This is just like this second chapter is how to like build routines and procedures into your room. So one thing I'm going to say, I'm going to put a plug in here, is have you ever done Envoy training? Because when I did Envoy training, it used to be called Catalyst, now it's called Envoy. That training was one of the only PD trainings, that was one worth my time, but two actually changed the way I taught and completely changed how I ran my room and completely changed how exhausted or not exhausted I was at the end of the day. So if you can go to Catalyst, do a Catalyst training, ask your district to send you to Catalyst training, oh my gosh, it is 20 out of 10. It is so good. It is so good. I would highly recommend doing that. So this building classroom flow part is a lot of Catalyst stuff. So one thing is I teach people is stop talking so much. Like, I know we as teachers, we want to narrate everything we're doing. Like, oh, I'm going to grab my stuff. You guys grab a pencil, sit down. Oh, don't make sure you grab the notes in the back. I got to pull up this on my computer. Oh, hey, Johnny, make sure you grab those scissors over there. It's verbal garbage. It's verbal garbage. And that's when we start to become the Charlie Brown teacher. The wah, 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 wah. Kids just start to tune us out. The second you stop talking, you start saying more. Kids are like, wait, where's Mrs. Sky? Like, why? I don't hear her. So they start looking for you. So I really, really, really have worked on over the last years, and Catalyst taught me this, you don't need to narrate everything you're doing. When you're starting to get your lesson ready, you will have already set your routines and procedures in place in your room so that when you're getting your lesson ready, the kids should already know what they're doing. Your classroom should run itself. Pound your procedures and your routines until you're blue in the face. I pound my routines and procedures for at least a month, the whole month of September. I am pounding and pounding. The second they don't do it right, nope, go back. Because I want my room to run itself so that I can do stuff over here to get ready for a lesson. So the less you talk, the less they're going to talk, and the less you're going to have to mitigate constant conversations. Catalyst teaches that your voice should be used for two things: building relationships and teaching, never for disciplining out loud. That's why you take a kid out into the hallway and you talk to them separately. Another thing is mindful transitions. So when I'm moving kids from one area to the other, I don't just say go, right? I try to make sure that it's a very structured flow. So if I need kids to grab supplies, I have my room in pods. I will only move them one pod at a time. So when I write out my lesson plans and when I know I have a lot of materials and a lot of different moving parts, I literally map out my transitions. What am I going to say? Who's going to get to move? How are they going to know they're going to get to move? And as soon as a kid doesn't do what you want, like let's say you're transitioning and you say, Charlie's pod, go get supplies, and someone else gets up, the second that happens, you say, everyone sit down. You look at that kid who's not in Charlie's pod. Whose pod did I say? Charlie's pod. Are you in Charlie's pod? No, I'm not. No, you are not. Sit down. Charlie's pod. You're not yelling. You're not, but you're very blunt. You're very, nope, that's not what we're doing right now. I said Charlie's pod. You sit down, okay? That doesn't mean you're mean. It just means you have expectations, you have boundaries, you have transitions, and you're going to do them how you want, because then that's going to stop any confusion. That's going to stop kids thinking, oh, she said Charlie's pod, but she really doesn't care if I get up because she never says anything. No. As soon as they don't do a transition right, you stop them. Send everybody back. Practice it again. I literally will practice the transition 5 or 6 times until they get it right if they're not paying attention or listening. Trust me, this will set up your rest of your 9 months. This, making sure that this is done right, having this be a little bit of a headache, will then make the rest of your life much easier as the year goes on. So then that falls in with consistent routines and procedures, okay? As soon as a kid doesn't do it how you want them to do it, make them stop, show them again, or have another kid who is listening show them again, have them stop, have them do it again. The second that you're not consistent, all of your hard work goes out the door. So you have to remain consistent in how you move people around the room. You have to remain consistent in your expectations and your boundaries. And so then that kind of goes with like the physical layout of your room. If you have kids getting up, getting things often, make sure it's in a place that's easy for them to all access. That they don't have to maybe go like in between 2 desks, or they don't have to go by your desk, or they don't have to go near a storage closet where they might be tempted to grab something out of there. Or maybe you have everything, you're thinking of all of your pre-transitions, and you're like, okay, they're gonna have to get this and this and this. Maybe you have it all laying out already for them, okay? So all of those things are gonna help with your classroom flow. Building a calm classroom flow, having calm and consistent transitions also helps with classroom management, because as soon as kids get confused, they start yapping at each other. They start asking, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. Where are we supposed to go for this? As soon as you have mindful, structured, consistent transitions, all of that extra stuff out the door. But again, you have to practice it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then usually after a break, MEA break, Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, you have to practice it again over and over and over and over and over again. But it's worth it, because after you pound it into them for a few weeks, you then usually don't have to touch it for several months. But the biggest thing I see here, the biggest issue I see here is teachers are great at this at the beginning of the year. They're like, oh, life is great. This is awesome. Then they get to like November, December, and everything has gone to crap because they haven't stayed consistent. So that's one of the biggest things when it comes to classroom flow. So I know that was just like a lot of rambling, and I know it would have been so much better if there had been obviously like the seminar. But I hope those things can help you. If there's more after you watch this video, if there's more questions you have, hey, this very specific situation happened, how would you handle it? Feel free to email me. And again, I can send you a little video or I can type it. This was just way too much, obviously, to type in an email, so I thought a video would be better. So I hope that's okay. I gotta figure out where my pause button is with all of this. I don't even know. Usually it's right on my screen, but it's like gone away now, so I don't know where everything is. But truly, if you've ever used Screencastify, usually it's just like right on. Oh, now where did I go? Now I don't even know where I went. Hello. In here. Well, I'm somewhere. But either way, send me a note. Shoot me an email. I hope this was helpful. If there's anything else you need, please feel free to reach out. And I hope you have a great school year.